Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
And if you bought a new car, you may be entitled at some point. This sounds like one of those ads you hear. If you've ever had this, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Anyway, insert sketchy law firm name here or something like that. I should start a law firm. I might actually make some money. Oh, imagine that. I see one issue with this because Ford's going to have, their legal team come in and say, whoa, hold on. That price increase on that Mach-E or that F-150 or whatever, well, that wasn't really to cover tariffs. Well, yeah, we raised the prices there, but that was just a market adjustment to reflect overall changes in the market or inflation. That was for inflation. Or they could just say, hey, we wanted to make some more money. They can do that. I mean, they can set the price of the vehicle and just say, yeah, we wanted more margin on there. Has nothing to do with tariffs, though.
From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
Man, I have had a nutty week dodging wildfires and then traveling and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I will fill you in on the details, specifically of my wildfire dodging. I had to evacuate a bunch of JDM cars, project cars, all sorts of stuff. So we will get to that. And I learned some stuff about dodging wildfires. And now, granted, the best case scenario happened, thankfully. I'll tell you that right out the gate. But some of the things that I learned about how I can be better prepared next time, I think you'll find interesting. So we will discuss that. Also, automakers are being reimbursed by the federal government for tariffs that they paid, even though they raised prices on you to cover the costs of the tariffs. That can't be right. Well, apparently it is. I'll discuss that. I'll fill you in on that as well. Now, in other news, can't forget about this. The Nissan Altima is finally dead. It is past tense. It is no more. It is an X car. And the question now is, are we safe? Are we finally safe from the Nissan Altima? We'll discuss that. And I'm going to answer some of your comments about last week's debate on the Ferrari the manual transmission, alleged manual that Ferrari is selling. And I took a look at the comments, all the comments I got on that show, and people were surprisingly split on this. You were split on this topic. I didn't expect that, frankly. I didn't expect that at all. I figured everyone would, obviously have the correct opinion, but it turns out some people don't. So we will discuss that. I'm going to read some of those comments off, give you my take on that. The manual transmission debate continues. Now, finally, will Toyota bring us the new MR2 and Celica? We'll get to all of that and more on this edition of the Automotive ADHD Show, which is brought to you by Chemical Guys and, through some major oversight, some lapse in judgment, Tire Rack. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. They're probably going to regret that. Anyway, we'll get to all of that and more on this edition of the show. Now, before we do that, I had a brief appearance last week on the Life in Colorado radio show, which was actually really fun, by the way, and I would encourage you to listen to it. It was all across the Front Range, airs on 710 KNUS in Denver, KRKS, airs on my flagship station I'm broadcasting out of, AM 1460 The Answer. It airs on 100.7 The Word. It's all over the place. It was really exciting to be on the program, and I talked about how social media has affected car culture, and it's affected it in various ways. Positively, sure. Negatively? Sure. It's done both. And I talked about how that relates to the local community car scene. And also on that show was an appearance by Jimmy Ford, Pikes Peak hill climb driver and friend of this show. I need to get him on the show here in the coming weeks. Got to get Jimmy on. I got to give him a little bit of a break coming off of the hill climb season because it's always busy. It's always exhausting. But you should go look up Life in Colorado. That is up as a podcast now, and listen to it and check it out. Give it a listen. Let me know what you think about car culture and social media. It's going to be really cool. I'm not always a guest on someone else's show, so it's fun for me when I get to do that. Now, I want to talk a little bit here. I want to start the show off talking about Toyota. And this maybe isn't the MR2 or the Celica that we all deserve, but it is. Check this out. Toyota says they will sell you an office chair for $3,500. Now, it better be a really nice office chair. In fact, I do like the principle of this here. If you want to take a peek at this, of course, we are a show on video as well. Remember that you can catch this on the radio all across southern Colorado, but you can also watch it on video, YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, and more. Take a look at that. That right there, that is a Toyota office chair, official Toyota office chair. Gee, it kind of looks like a car seat, doesn't it? It kind of looks like they put wheels on a car seat and are selling it for $3,500 instead of, bringing us an MR2 or a Celica. And you know what? That's exactly what they did. That's precisely what they did. They put wheels on a car seat. They're selling it for $3,500. Now, it is a cool car seat. This comes by way of Car and Driver. Hat tip to Jack Fitzgerald, doing some great work as always at Car and Driver. This is from Toyota Bolshoku, which is the automaker's sub-brand focused, they say, on seating and interior components. And you have to realize something, that in Japan, the Toyota Crown, the Crown brand, that's the luxury-focused brand. You don't often find that Lexus, like we have in North America, is as relevant in Japan when it comes to luxury and things like that. And the Toyota Crown has been the luxury Toyota, the one to have if you want a comfy, a luxurious, amazingly, probably slow, but comfortable Toyota, right? That has been the thing for decades. The Crown has been around for a long time. Now, in the positioning of Toyota's lineup, if you're going, hey, Matt, what the heck is a Crown? It's a very high-end Toyota. It's not necessarily as high-end as a Century, but it's higher end than, something like your Camry or anything like that. It is a very luxurious car. Now, the Crown exists in the modern era as a crossover, because of course it does. Everything's a crossover. I think there's probably actually some sort of universal rule that all things become crossover eventually. Maybe we're just stuck in that timeline where everything becomes a crossover. I mean, it'll happen to the best of us. You and me, we'll become crossovers too at some point. Yeah, with a little too much ground clearance, not quite the right proportions, but bought by literally everybody for some reason. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm not a very big fan of the crossover genre when it comes to cars. I think we ought to bring back station wagons, personally. But the crossover is, I guess, the new station wagon. Everyone buys them. Also, like full-size SUVs. People buy those a lot, too. But anyway, so if you want a luxurious Toyota Crown crossover, and you perhaps want to take some of it home, perhaps you're enough of a car enthusiast that just having the car in the garage and driving it, it's not enough. You need a little more car flavor in the home, or in the office in this case. You can, of course, do that. Now, I mean, granted, you could do that with anything. I've been a bachelor and my entire life. And in college, I used to bring car parts into the house, in fact. Well, actually, it wasn't like a decision of want. It was more of a decision of need. It was, I had car parts and I had nowhere to put them. So I would have like hoods and random doors and panels and engine parts in the house. That was a pretty common occurrence when I was in college. I even brought an entire motorcycle into the house once. Which, by the way, if you're in college and you have a motorcycle, that's one of the coolest things you can do. And no one can convince me otherwise. You're there, you've moved out on your own for the first time, and you're sitting there in your bedroom, which is just like a mattress on the floor with some sheets that don't fit, and you're looking at your motorcycle, which is in the house with you. Look, if If you haven't done that, maybe you can't relate. If you've done that, you know what I'm talking about. Or you're probably like, come on, Matt, you got to get a life. Anyway, and that life could be buying a $3,500 Toyota seat. Now, what I do find interesting about this $3,500 Toyota office chair, not that the majority of my listeners spend their lives in office chairs. Certainly a lot of people do. Though I have a feeling majority of my listeners are probably out there actually doing something that does look like work. I'm not jabbing at you if you do work in an office. Okay, maybe I am doing that a little bit, just a little. But this $3,500 office chair can heat and cool because it is actually just the seat from the Crown. That is the thing. I mean, I say jokingly they just took the seat out of the car and put some casters on it, but they actually did do that. And that actually I think is kind of cool because this has the heated function. This has a cooling function as well. It's made of the exact same leather because it is literally the seat. It's power adjustable. It's all of those things. And I would argue that car seats probably make really good office chairs because think of the research and development that a manufacturer like Toyota does into designing a car seat. Everything from the material to the ergonomics of it to the durability of it all has to withstand years of getting in and out of the car, driving it and being comfortable and all of that stuff. It has to withstand a significant amount of time of, seat time, right? Whereas if you just are buying an office chair from, Office Depot, I mean, sure, it's not $3,500. I guarantee the manufacturer of that office chair has not done the same level of R&D on that chair as, Toyota. So in a way, this I think actually could probably be a better thing. I wonder if it still has the side airbags in it. That could be pretty entertaining if it has like the side impact airbags in it still. That could be pretty entertaining, in the middle, you're in the middle of like a Zoom call or something, with the marketing department. I don't know, whatever corporation thing it is you do. And then the side airbag. You can just have that go off randomly in the middle of the call. It would be really exciting. This is why I shouldn't be on conference calls and corporate stuff. Anyway, let me know if you'd buy that. $3,500 office chair from Toyota. Maybe Jim Miller would buy it. You're listening to the Automotive ADHD show. After the break, we're going to talk about tariffs and how Ford is getting their tariff money back. Are you going to get it back? We'll discuss that.
Mister, I like the feeling of going where I want, when I want.
Toyota Land Cruiser's new 8-seater Sahara. Cruise the highway. Get the feeling of luxury.
Oh, what a feeling!
Get the feeling of four-wheel drive dependability when there is no highway.
Freedom, that's what it's all about.
Oh, what a feeling!
Land Cruiser, the most wanted four-wheel drive on Earth.
Because somebody did it right.
Oh, what a feeling!
Land Cruiser.
Toyota. Hey, you're listening to the Automotive ADHD show. I'm your host, Matt West, hanging out with you, talking cars. Hey, something looked a little off with that video. I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm not really sure. But I do want to give a shout out to our Australian listeners. Yes, plural. There is at least more than one. I know this because I've sent packages of stickers and keychains out to several people now in the great land down under. And I do want to give a shout out to those Australian listeners. I mean, it must be really difficult to be able to find the stream of this show and queue up the stream of this show, the podcast of this show, when you're upside down like that. That's got to be really difficult. So they're putting the effort into that. I cannot thank them enough. And by the way, Australia is kind of on my bucket list of automotive destinations. Now, I know that Australia can be pretty restrictive when it comes to emissions and modifying cars. That's something, we need to liberate the Australians when it comes to that. I don't know if a sort of like a military action would be required to liberate them in that sense. I'm not sure. That's not my call to make. I could tell you what I would maybe do, but anyway, but they have really cool car culture in Australia, and I haven't been there, and I really would love to get a taste of it because, Australians love burnouts. As Americans, we invented the muscle car. I think we get to take ownership of that and probably by proxy the burnout. I don't know who was the first person to do a burnout, but it was probably an American. Having said that, though, Australians definitely, when it comes to loving burnouts, are definitely at least second, if not tying for first place with us Americans, because they love those big smoky burnouts, big block V8, superchargers, all of the good stuff. And they got cool straight six stuff. They got the Ford Barra. Am I saying that right? I don't know. They'll correct me if I'm saying that right. They got the Ford Barra engines. They're straight sixes, turbos. They put them into Falcons and all sorts of cool stuff. I think that would be, you know what? It's good. We're going to have to make it happen. And any of my listeners, I know we're on the radio all across southern Colorado, but any of my listeners in Australia, I hope to make it out there at some point. That would be pretty cool to see. I don't know how well I'll get used to the whole upside down thing, but I'll have to give it a shot. So anyway, let me know if you are listening in Australia. Chime in on the comments on YouTube, the podcast, Spotify, Facebook, and more. Now, let's talk a little bit about tariffs. And, well, this. So there is, we've covered tariffs before on this program. We have absolutely done it. I have been of the opinion that I don't know if the tariffs are the right way to do it. They might not be, but we need to onshore U.S. manufacturing somehow. It needs to happen, and it needs to happen at least, we at least need to pull a lot of the manufacturing out of China. Can we get it elsewhere? Can we get it in other places? We need to see about that because, you know, let me put it this way, right? Like the free market says, hey, you should be able to buy whatever car parts you want, and the company with the best parts and the best prices is going to win in the end. But we have a situation where China can literally outcompete anybody on all of these car parts, and they're making inferior parts, but the market's just being flooded with them to the point that you can't, if you make car parts, you design car parts, sometimes you can't even get your parts manufactured in the United States because we don't even have the tooling or the ability to do it. We've created a system where we're dependent on another country, which doesn't necessarily have our best interests in mind when it comes to, well, everything in daily life. But as the focus of this show goes, car parts and various things like that, try to go online and buy parts that are not made in China. I had a particularly terrible experience not too long ago with a intake air temp sensor that I needed for my K24 swapped S2000. And I needed to get a GM style sensor that worked well with the ECU. And the thing is, I wasn't able to get an OEM one in the time frame I needed. So I jumped on Amazon. I needed like next day Amazon. So I got the next best sensor I could find. It was like $50. It's definitely Chinese. Put it in the car, get it set up, get it wired up. And I'm driving along, and like 20 minutes later, I'm looking at the computer, which is plugged into the ECU, doing a little bit of street tuning on the car, and suddenly the IATs just drop down to 0. I'm like, well, that's weird. So I start troubleshooting it, thinking there's a wiring issue with the sensor I put in and all of that stuff. I spend a bunch of time messing with it. Nothing. So I finally just take the sensor out, and lo and behold, if you've ever seen these GM style ones, they have a little cage around the probe, and then there's this little probe that sits in there. And I take that out, and the probe is gone. It's just not there. The motor, this was in the intake, after the air filter, the motor just sucked it up. And I had some flashbacks to the time that I grenaded an F20C, one of the original, well, it was the original engine that was in that S2000. The first time I blew that up, that was because a spark plug electrode had snapped off of a spark plug and decided to play a bunch of really aggressive ping pong, I guess, between the piston and the top of the cylinder head. It was a very, very fast and aggressive game of ping pong between those two components of the engine. Obviously, with that electrode being the ball, the ping pong ball bouncing around in there. Did a lot of damage. The motor was not okay. It was it was not fine after that. In this case with this probe, I had flashbacks to that time that happened with the spark plug. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose another motor. I just put this K24 in. This is not going to be good. So I get it back home. It's running okay. I don't hear any weird sounds. I do a leak down on it because if it did damage anything, it would probably damage the valves. I'd lose compression through there. All right. Didn't damage anything there. That's good. I bore scoped the cylinders. Honestly, everything looked fine. So I considered myself lucky. The motor just chopped it up and spit it out, and we're all good. But imagine this, though, with those Chinese parts. Imagine that that's happening on a greater scale. Now, I learned my lesson. Now, what did I do? Did I go and get another good quality part? No, again, I needed it pretty quickly. So instead, I drilled a hole in my airbox and I put the intake air temp sensor in the airbox, where if at least it does break, it's going to be blocked by the air filter instead of having it actually in the intake tube itself. Anyway, so, the question is like, are these Chinese parts, and I know we're going to talk about tariffs, but are these Chinese parts, think of it like economic warfare almost, right? If you have enough of these bad parts coming in, and what if they're deliberately bad? I'm not saying I have evidence of that, but I subjectively kind of feel like with the number of issues I've seen with parts and some of the stuff I've experienced personally, that it's almost like economic warfare in the sense that, okay, we're going to flood the market with a bunch of bad parts. People are going to buy them. The parts will break, and the people will probably have to buy them again. So they'll waste a bunch of money, drain their own bank accounts over time. Think of it as a cumulative thing with all the products, parts, and things that you buy. Or something even more catastrophic happens, like this little part fails, and say my motor, which I had just done, put it all together, did the K-swap and everything, and it grenades. Say it grenades the motor. Well, that's a much bigger hit to my wallet than buying another, $50 sensor. So I think there is a problem with Chinese-made parts. Do I have evidence that there's a conspiracy? No, I don't. But regardless, there's a problem with the parts. We need better options. Manufacturers have no incentive to give us better options. And the question then becomes, where do we define free market with car parts, and where do we define, what do we do with tariffs, right? This is a big debate. And I'll say, for the first time ever on this show, I will admit to not having the answer. That's never happened before. That's a first, actually, for this program. Anyway, but I'm not saying I have the answer here, but I am saying I'm noticing there is an issue when it comes to that. And one could say that tariffs would be one option to encourage manufacturers to onshore production. In this case, though, we haven't really seen any onshoring of production. That hasn't happened. The manufacturers just passed the cost on to the consumer and just carried about as business as usual. So maybe that isn't the solution. But this has led to another problem. This other problem, check this out. Headline here coming from The Drive, Byron Hurd, hat tip at The Drive. The headline reads, "This class action lawsuit may decide if an automaker owes you a refund." And so what has happened here, to give you some context, to give you some backstory, is the Supreme Court has ruled that the IEEPA, otherwise known as the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, it is ruled that is unconstitutional. Well, not the act itself, but it has ruled, I should clarify, hold on, step back, I should clarify, it has ruled that the presidential administration's imposition of tariffs underneath that was unconstitutional and therefore unlawful. So, we're in the situation where that was declared, those tariffs that were imposed were declared unlawful, unconstitutional. So, what does that mean for automakers? Well, Ford, they have, in the case of this, they have sued to get their money back that they spent on those tariffs. And they are expected to get back $1.3 billion. Billion with a B, $1.3 billion. And the question then becomes, well, Ford wants the $1.3 billion back, but they raised prices to actually cover the cost of the tariff. So shouldn't it be you, the consumer? Weren't you, the consumer, the one who actually paid the $1.3 billion? Right? Well, someone else thought of that too. A particular Ford Mach-E owner out of San Diego, guy named Jason Bullock. He is suing Ford for his cut of the tariff refunds. Now, he's not suing for the whole thing because presumably Ford probably did eat some tariff cost. They probably did. But you as the consumer also did too. So it's going to be interesting to see what portion of that really is determined as, okay, Ford paid this much in tariffs and you as the consumer paid that much. I see one issue with this lawsuit. Now, this is going to turn into a class action lawsuit. He's suing Ford. He's the guy kind of representing the whole thing. Then it's going to turn into, in theory, a class action. And if you bought a new car, you may be entitled at some point. This sounds like one of those ads you hear. If you've ever had this, you may be entitled to significant compensation. Anyway, insert sketchy law firm name here or something like that. I should start a law firm. That'd be great. Anyway, so it might actually make some money. Well, imagine that. Anyway, so the question here then is, okay, it's going to be who gets what cut of what. But then how does Ford even define? I see one issue with this because Ford's going to have, their legal team come in and say, whoa, hold on. That price increase on that Mach-E or that F-150 or whatever, well, that wasn't really to cover tariffs. Well, yeah, we raised the prices there, but that was just a market adjustment to reflect overall changes in the market or inflation. That was for inflation. Or they could just say, hey, we wanted to make some more money. They can do that. I mean, they can set the price of the vehicle and just say, yeah, we wanted more margin on there. Has nothing to do with tariffs, though. So we'll continue this discussion. I want to follow this up on the other side of the news break. If you're listening on the radio, we're going to take a break for the news. If you're on the podcast, stay right here. It's the Automotive ADHD Show, and we'll be right back after the break.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
He's the nut behind the wheel and behind the mic. This is Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Hey, I want to propose a trade with you. I was just taking a drink here out of this Automotive ADHD themed water bottle. No, I'm not giving you the whole water bottle, but I do have a sticker on this water bottle if you're watching on video. The As Heard on the Automotive ADHD radio show and podcast. And you can get one of these if you send me some car sounds so I can play them on the radio. Last week, we had Ethan who sent in some awesome sounds of his Suzuki Jimny, and I need more because I am living vicariously through my listeners' submitted car sounds. So I'm going to sweeten the deal, though. I'll give you one of these stickers if you send me car sounds. Or, well, and, not or, but also, if you're watching on video, here, I'm going to turn around. Look what I got. You remember the More Cars Than Friends hoodies from this last winter? I got it in t-shirt form now. If you're not familiar, it's a t-shirt that broadcasts to all of your friend, singular, that you have more cars than friends. And it's got a cool design on the back. It's red, white, and blue. It's a little patriotic. And I think it's pretty darn cool. Here, get another look at that. Get a look. If you're watching on radio, take a look at it right there. Just look at your speakers and just imagine. You will see it. You will see it in your mind's eye. Now, it's a nice black t-shirt. On the front of it, it says Automotive ADHD Show. And I like t-shirts, by the way, that have the design on the back and a little design on the front. If you have that design on the big design on the front of the shirt and you're working on cars in the summertime, it just gets hot, sticks to your chest. Not a fan of that. So I had this set up how I like t-shirts. Big design on the back, little design on the front. It's black, by the way, which is great because it is not going to show greasy fingerprints, oil stains, or any tire marks, whatever. I mean, hopefully you don't get ran over with this, but I mean, if you do, it won't show the tire marks. So that's cool. So if you send some car sounds in, I'll give you the sticker, and then I will pick at random a winner to also get some t-shirts. I've got correction here. I don't have mediums. I have larges, XLs, and 2XLs. So send those car sounds into my show. You can do it facebook.com/automotiveadhd. You can also email me, matt@automotiveadhd.com. And in the subject line, put something. You need to give Jim Miller a compliment. You can decide what that compliment is. But whatever it is, it should be like one of those compliments that he doesn't really know how to respond to. That he's kind of maybe even a little creeped out by. I'll encourage you to get creative there. So, all right. Now, before the break here, we were talking about tariffs. Fun, right? So, there is this lawsuit that is going to see if the $1.3 billion that Ford is getting refunded by the federal government in terms of tariffs, they say that's how much they paid in tariffs, this is now asking for a cut of what Ford paid. And I am really curious here. Now, obviously, the argument here for this is super simple. The legal team who's saying we need to get the people a cut of the tariffs is honestly, I mean, it's a simple argument. It boils down to, Ford passed prices on to consumers, and then they're getting refunded money by the government, even though they passed the price to the consumer. So, I mean, like, if you just look at it from a nuts and bolts, like fairness perspective, I mean, like even a child, an infant knows like, hey, that's probably got some legs to it. So we'll see. But then again, lawyers, legal things, anything can happen. So, but it'll be curious. I want to see what happens with this, because if they win this lawsuit, could turn into a class action. Well, it is a class action, but I mean, what it'll turn into is how much do you get? Because class actions, after everyone gets paid and the lawyers get paid and all of that stuff happens, if you've ever been in a class action lawsuit and you didn't even realize it until you got a letter in the mail and it's like, congratulations, we won this class action on your behalf. Here's 70 cents. Enjoy it. That's happened to me before, so we'll see what happens here. Also, I want to know, this is obviously applying to new cars that were sold, but what about parts? What about all of us who paid extra on parts? I'd be curious to know. I'm sure at some point you're probably not going to get anything, but I want to see what happens with this, because if this is successful, then I think duplicate lawsuits will probably happen. There are probably people lining up watching this going, what's going to happen? And as soon as like they win this lawsuit, then they're going to go after Ford. They're going to go after GM. This is just going to keep happening to all the automakers. So we will see. Let me know your thoughts, though. Do you think that we, as the car buying public, are entitled to a cut of that money back? One could argue it's your money in the first place because you paid it for the tariffs. One could also argue that it's coming from the federal government, and anything from the federal government is really tax money. So I don't know. Let me know what you think there. Facebook.com/Automotive ADHD. If you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, great ways to comment on there as well. And speaking of comments, we're going to get to some here in a little bit about Ferrari. Ferrari's L'Emanuele. So before we do that, what else do we have here? We got a lot of stuff to get to. So much stuff, in fact. I want to talk a little bit about the wildfire that I got to be a part of to an extent. And if you've been following along, if you listened on last week's program, I was talking about the Aspen Acres wildfire. The Aspen Acres wildfire is one of the largest fires now in Colorado history. It's very, very big, and it burned all across southern Colorado, specifically covered some of the area of Rye. The town of Rye had a lot of homes outside of the town that were burned. The town of Beulah. And you could see, if you lived in Pueblo, you could see a lot of the fire happening. Pueblo, Colorado. If you were in Colorado Springs, Denver, Boulder, you definitely saw the smoke. It was very, very thick, major fire. And the fire threatened a local Colorado attraction, one of my favorites as a kid, Bishop's Castle. If you're listening on the podcast, you're ever in Colorado, you want an amazing drive, one of the best scenic drives, amazing like sports car road that then ends at a castle that a dude just built because he could. Literally like a single dude who built it like stone by stone using a lot of the natural stones in the area. And this is a gigantic castle. It's amazing. It threatened that, got, I think they said 200 yards from the castle, and there were some significant efforts to save the castle there. So this fire happened, and as it turns out, this fire is also pretty close to where I actually live. Now, I commute into Colorado Springs. Now, I recently moved up into Custer County. It's like the West Cliff area, kind of between Canyon City and West Cliff. And I decided to move up there, build my shop, do my stuff there. And so that's where I've been since last September. And the fire, and I've one of the reasons too is because, you can have a lot more project cars out of the city and no one bugs you out of the city. So that's it was part of that. Now, the thing is, the fire got pretty close to me. As the crow flies, it was a little over 7, 8-ish, 9 miles, the actual fire line. It's kind of tough to say because you're looking at the maps and the fire maps aren't updated in real time. That's one of the things I discovered that was somewhat frustrating, and we'll get into more of that. But this fire got pretty close, and as the winds changed, they updated the evacuation zones around it. Definitely got a lot closer to the evacuation zone than the fire line. At one point, the evacuation zone was only about 3.5 miles from my house. And then the county put me on an alert status saying, hey, you're not pre-evacuation yet, but just so you know, you're next if conditions change. So that got me into a little bit of a, I should probably start thinking about what I should do here and how do I get all these project cars out. And if you follow me on social media, you saw I posted pretty regular updates of me moving cars, updates on the fire. And the challenge was, okay, they didn't hit me with pre-evacuation status yet, but the fire was getting closer. The winds were high. There was a concern that if they stay high, we could have a problem. And if they put you on pre-evacuation, so the stages they have is alert. So like, hey, just a heads up, you're close to this. You're going to be next on pre-evacuation. Pre-evacuation is pack up all your belongings, get staged, get ready to go. And then evacuation is you need to leave. So those are the different stages. It probably varies depending on where you are in the country, where you are in the world, but that's how it worked here. And my problem was that, okay, I've got 8 project cars. I got 8 cars. So, the Subaru, the daily driver, that's not a project. But my Tacoma needs a little love, but it's all right. It does fine. But I've got the S2000. I've got the AE86. I've got the red Jeep. I've got the, I own Subaru WRX like an 07. I have an IS300. I didn't tell you about that. Some of these cars just sort of materialize. I don't know how they keep showing up. And then I've got the Toyota Century. So, like, there's a bunch of other cars there. And the challenge becomes, all right, there's a wildfire coming. I'm not pre-evacuation yet, but I have a really good feeling that when they put you on pre-evacuation, that doesn't give you the time necessarily. You might have a lot of time on pre-evacuation, or you might have a little bit of time. You don't know, but they're going to give you that pre-evacuation order, and that's when they want you to pack stuff, get ready to go. So I said, all right, I need to get ready to get out of here, but I got all these cars. I'm going to do, it sounds silly, but I want to be better safe than sorry. I'm going to do a pre-evacuation and at least get the cars out, because doing multiple trips back and forth to move cars takes a lot longer than you might have when, a fire's coming in and it's starting to get close. So I was able to get some friends to help me out and help shuttle some cars down. I got a storage unit in the town of Westcliff itself, and I got an outdoor storage space, and I was able to get some friends, and it was, by the way, it was like $45 for the storage unit, which I said, yeah, sign me up. It was a big outdoor open spot. And then I got a enclosed unit as well, and I shuffled cars. I got the S2000 to the enclosed unit, and then we started shuffling cars back and forth, stuffing this whole like RV-size spot full of all of my vehicles, and it took a while. And there were some challenges that I had along the way, one of which was that the red Jeep, I was in the middle of doing a rear locker install on it, and I got stalled out because the locker didn't actually fit in the carrier for the differential. So I got stalled out for a little bit, and I had just left it as a back burner project for a little over a week because I'm like, I got to cut it. I got to modify it to get this locker in there. And so then I suddenly had to say, okay, I got to pick that project back up and get this locker together so I can also move the Jeep. It was a total, there's just one thing after another. It took forever, and it was very exhausting, that's for sure. And then that's not even including, okay, you probably got to start at least thinking about your personal items in the home. What do you bring? What do you not? What do you not bring, right? And it turns out there's probably not like that much, well, at least hopefully, at least for me, I realized, yeah, there's not much I really honestly need. There's a few heirlooms, a few family valuables, but it's like the rest of it, it's basically anything in the gun safe. Anything in the gun safe. Save that. So, but I learned some other things that are interesting about this whole process. For one, which is, big takeaway is I wasn't prepared enough. That was a big takeaway. The other thing is, turns out insurance companies aren't always a fan of you being near a wildfire. I'll tell you more about that. Had a little bit of a experience with Hagerty, which I like Hagerty. They do a declared value policy. I use them on most of my cars. But I'll tell you what ended up happening with them after the break. It's Automotive ADHD. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
No left lane hogs here. Automotive ADHD with Matt West.
Now, I want to wrap up some of my thoughts with the wildfire and my experience with getting stuff insured and making sure it's insured. I hit some hiccups with this wildfire. If you're just joining me here on the show, we're talking about that. I also want to get to some discussion about Ferrari. I got a lot of comments relating to the Ferrari fake manual, or the Le Manuel. It's supposed to mean the manual, I guess, but I think that actually means fake manual is probably what happened. So a lot of people disagreed with me on this one. I was shocked. Anyway, but I want to get to that. So before we do, you need to know about one of the show's sponsors, which is Tire Rack. Through some miraculous miscalculation on their behalf, they have partnered with the show, and I love Tire Rack. Now, a lot of people, you hear podcasters and radio hosts, say, yeah, I used them before they were, an endorser, before they were an advertiser. You hear that all the time, but it's honestly true. I have been using Tire Rack for years, and I was the one who reached out to them anyway. And I'd used them for years. And back when I was doing autocross all the time with the S2000, not doing it as much now, don't have as much time now, but when I was getting tires a lot. I was doing it through Tire Rack. If you're in Colorado, they have a distribution center in Denver. I mean, obviously they ship all across the country, but it's really convenient. Not that they're necessarily advertising next day shipping, but I've had really, really fast shipping being here in Colorado, being so close to their one of their distribution centers, which is great. But one of my favorite things about them that I've used for years now is the tool that they have for comparing tires. So they do loads of independent tire testing. They do it themselves. It's independent, and they have tons of info. You can compare tires, and you can compare the different ratings they gave them on steering feel, wet braking, dry traction, things like that. It's great for a performance tire. It's great for a daily tire, too. They got everything from actual track performance tires to all seasons for your daily driver to mud terrains and all terrains for your truck or your Jeep. I've used them literally on pretty much any set of tires I've bought probably in the past 5 or 6 years. I've done it through Tire Rack, any new tires. And in fact, if you're watching on video, the Subaru's behind me, you can also get wheels at Tire Rack. I have a set of Method 502s in gold on there. Those are 17-inch Method 502s with Falcon Wild Peak tires on there. And guess where I got those? Tire Rack. So if you need tires, which you do, you're going to need tires. You need to go to Tire Rack, use the QR code on screen. If you're watching on video, if you're on the podcast, click the link in the description. Tell them that I sent you. And actually, you can also tell them that you love Jim Miller's Mustang. In fact, you should tell them that. So thanks to Tire Rack for partnering with the show. Really great stuff. So before the break, we were talking, like I said, about insurance. And I had a little bit of a hiccup, if anything, with Haggerty. Now, Haggerty's not affiliated with the show, but I use their products. I use their insurance pretty religiously at this point because of a bad experience I had way back when my AE86 got smashed in a parking lot. And I had a bad experience dealing with regular insurance. So that was a big lesson to me. If you've been listening to the show for a little bit, a few weeks ago, we had Jim Miller on, and we talked all about what to do when your classic car, your modified car, your JDM car, whatever it is, anything that's not normal, anything that's not your standard, just run-of-the-mill traffic, your daily driver, right? We talked about what do you do insurance-wise when it comes to that. And Haggerty is a great option, frankly. They're one of the best still. But I have a little bit of a gripe because what happened is I needed to get insurance on the Century. I haven't had insurance on it. I've had it for a little bit, but I've been working on it. And I said, okay, wildfire's nearby. I need to get insurance on this thing and need to make it happen. And I go online, I submit my thing, submit all the stuff to get the car a policy for it. And they send me a little thing back, an email that says, it's like a friendly reminder, hey, we know you're near a wildfire area at the moment. We just want to let you know we're there with you. We're looking out for you. Let us know if you need anything. I thought, well, that's kind of nice. They know that, and they know my other cars are insured, but in that area. And then I get a phone call, and they call me, and the next day, and they go, hey, we know you're near that wildfire. Just so you know, we can't insure that Century of yours because you're close to the wildfire. Sorry, we can't put a new policy on it. And now they can be kind of picky. They can absolutely be kind of picky, and it's their business. It's their right to be picky. They get to choose what they insure. But it was another lesson to me. Overall, preparedness-wise, I wasn't very prepared. I dodged the bullet. I got lucky. Nothing happened. Great. But it was a big lesson to me. You gotta be prepared, especially if you live in any sort of wildfire country. You gotta have a game plan. How are you gonna get your cars out? How are you gonna get your tools out? I mean, obviously all that stuff's important. Then you gotta think about, the important stuff. How are you gonna get your family out if it's really dangerous, right? So you gotta have all of that stuff in mind, but you gotta have those insurance policies in place before that happens. You can't have the wildfire be, less than 10 miles away from you and then get the policy set up. They won't let you do that. And I'm sure any other insurer would probably be the same way. So I learned that. I learned that lesson. Thankfully, I didn't learn that lesson the hard way. It was a close call, but I've got insurance on the Century now. It's good to go, but you need to keep that in mind. I wasn't as prepared as I should have been, and I think having a game plan, just having a plan, saying, hey, I got some buddies. They're already ready to help out if anything ever happens. I'll help them out. They'll help me out. Let's move cars. Let's just sort of have a game plan in mind so you're not scrambling last minute. It's stressful to be scrambling last minute. It's stressful for sure. So now, all of that being said, I'm glad that I feel like I overreacted. I'm like, you know what? Nothing happened. That was a lot of effort. If you were following me on social media, you saw all the stuff I was doing to move the cars, update you on the fire, all of that stuff. I'm glad it feels like an overreaction. I'm glad nothing happened. I really am glad. And I do want to thank the fire crews who worked really hard on that. These guys got out there on their 4th of July weekend, and instead of watching fireworks, they were working the fire line. That's amazing. Can't believe how much hard work went into that. Everything from the crews on the ground to the air crews to the incident command teams and everyone in between involved in that. And in fact, even on social media, some of the videos I posted up, viewers, folks who listen to this show said, hey, I'm on a fire team. I'm coming down from Wyoming right now to come help out with that fire. I'm coming from California, wherever. Like several people chimed in and said they were coming to help with the fire. That is awesome. That is awesome. It's amazing to see how people came together to help out with this fire. So a huge thank you. I mean, God bless the fire crews, man. They really saved the day. Literally, they did. So last thing I got to get to here, I will talk about the Altima and why that's going away. And we'll do that as a bonus podcast after the show here. But, oh man, I got lambasted by a bunch of people on the internet who, frankly, again, I was not expecting this reaction when we were talking about Ferrari's fake manual, the fake one, the fake manual. And the thing that happened here is, I said, if you're just tuning in, I said, it's not a real manual transmission. It's performance theater. It's the same thing as fake engine noises from EVs. And, it's not something that, as an enthusiast, that appeals to me. Now, couple of the comments I get here. One guy on YouTube here says, if it's what their consumer base wants, then so be it. They're not trying to sell to the average Joe. It's millionaires and billionaires with global enterprise businesses. I doubt they tend to value authenticity of driving experience as much as we do. Now, I agree with you on that. Probably the target demographic for this car doesn't value driving authenticity the same way the enthusiast does. I do get that. I understand that, but let me flip the argument here. Let me flip the argument, because that crowd also does very much enjoy I won't say authenticity, but they enjoy exclusivity. And if Ferrari, if the argument here wasn't, if the news, the press around this wasn't Ferrari makes manual simulated thing. No, and the headline instead was Ferrari brings back the manual. They do it for real. They actually bring it back. They do the real deal. They do it as an exclusive. You know what? Those buyers, they would probably be lining up to buy it still. Not only that, there are enthusiast-minded supercar buyers. Granted, that doesn't make up the majority of supercar buyers. I get that. There are enthusiast-minded supercar buyers, though, who like doing track days, who like driving, and those people would be the first to line up. They would be putting deposits down right away to have the real deal, a real manual, even if it's a limited edition. That would be a non-issue. They would absolutely do it. Now, there's another good comment here. If you're paying for an illusion, might as well save money and build a sim rig, a racing sim, which that's what you're That's what you're buying when you buy the Ferrari manual. It's a racing sim. It's got the Logitech shifter and everything. Now, here's the thing here. Another good point that I saw, and I want to, for the sake of argument, address this. Franco over on Spotify says the people are just being purist and trying to pretend that their 70s muscle car is the best thing ever created. The appeal of a manual transmission is the ability to have total control of the vehicle, and like it or not, this transmission will still do the same. Yes, it does do the same, but if all you're looking for is the ability to control the transmission, then the paddle shifters with the DCT, the dual clutch automatic, already let you do that. So why do you need the performance theater of having the gated shifter, which is just a video game controller, or the electronic clutch pedal that's not connected to anything? It's a simulated clutch pedal that, again, let me remind you, lets you stall it for some reason, even though it's an automatic. Little weird to me there. Now, he does say for the price, it should do everything. And technically, it does do everything. But also, I would argue, for the price, Ferrari could have just made the real deal. They absolutely could have. We're talking about a car that was $590,000. And some people will comment and say that, well, the regulations, the cost to develop it's just not feasible for a manufacturer. Well, yeah, we're not asking Chevy to take their entire fleet of Chevy Traverses and build a manual for them and manufacture them at scale. We're not asking them to do that. We're asking a boutique supercar manufacturer who, by the way, money is of no object to the people who buy these cars, to develop a manual. Now, someone else here over on YouTube also pointed out the fact that the DCT, the dual clutch automatic, is actually pretty close to a manual transmission, mechanically speaking. It's not that far off. It's closer than like a traditional torque converter automatic would be. So you could just take that and rework that. So, I don't know. This is something I was surprised. Loads of other people in the comments here, I don't have time to get to all of them, said, this is just fine. We want the fake manual. Who cares if it lets you shift the gears? I don't know, man. It just doesn't do it for me. But let's keep this discussion going. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.